Thousands of people drive through Limestone, Maine every year. They see forests, they see farmland, they see a quiet town in Aroostook County. What they don't see is what's underneath. Buried nuclear weapons storage bunkers, low-level radioactive waste that was hauled out by train, 80,000 cubic yards of contaminated soil sitting under a capped landfill, and a chemical so toxic that scientists say it may not break down in the environment for thousands of years. It is still leaking into the groundwater today. The U.S. Air Force has known about it for decades, and the town of Limestone is only now finding out exactly how bad it is. What Loring was. In 1953, the United States built something in the forests of northern Maine that most Americans have never heard of: Loring Air Force Base. 9,000 acres, the easternmost strategic air command base in the country. Its location was not an accident. If Soviet bombers ever crossed the Atlantic, they would reach Maine first. Loring was the first line of defense. The base housed the 42nd Bombardment Wing, B-36 Peacemaker bombers, the planes designed to deliver nuclear weapons deep into Soviet territory. And right next to the base, a facility so secret that 90 to 95% of the people stationed at Loring itself never set foot inside it. It was called North River Depot, and in 1952 it became the nation's first operational nuclear weapons storage site. 27 storage bunkers, 4 rings of security fencing, the third fence electrified with enough voltage to kill. Designed to look like a quiet village from the air. Inside, the most advanced weapons mankind had ever built.
The base itself was not the only Cold War installation in Maine. The U.S. Army built Nike missile sites across Aroostook County. Nike was an anti-missile defense system. Underground silos, missiles pointed at the sky. Sites in Limestone, Caswell, Connor, Caribou. Their purpose? If Soviet bombers got through, Nike missiles would shoot them down before they reached Loring. The Nike Hercules missiles, the second generation, carried nuclear warheads, between 1 and 40 kilotons each. For comparison, the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima was 15 kilotons. These missiles sat in underground silos in the forests of Maine, ready to be fired over American soil. The logic was this: a nuclear detonation above Maine was preferable to one inside Boston or New York. That was the calculation. That was the world these people lived in. What they left behind. In 1994, Loring Air Force Base closed. The Cold War was over. The base was no longer needed. 40 years of nuclear operations on 9,000 acres of northern Maine. And when the Air Force left, they left behind what they had done to the land. The EPA added the former base to the National Priorities List in 1990, the Superfund list, the list reserved for the most contaminated sites in America. What investigators found was documented in federal records now available to the public. Disposal trenches containing 1,000 cubic yards of low-level radioactive waste from nuclear weapons maintenance operations, 80,000 cubic yards of contaminated sediment removed from a former quarry, 30,000 cubic yards of contaminated soil removed from various sites across the base, 2 landfills covering 27 acres capped with impermeable barriers. The radioactive waste was loaded onto trains and shipped to a licensed disposal facility in Utah. The contaminated soil was capped and left beneath a landfill in Limestone, Maine. And then came the discovery that changed everything. PFAS, per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, also called forever chemicals, because they do not break down in the environment, possibly ever.
Loring Air Force Base used firefighting foam containing PFAS for decades. At crash sites, maintenance shops, hangars, fuel dump areas, wash racks, runways, drainage systems, landfills. PFAS was, according to investigators, slathered everywhere. It had been leaching into the soil, the groundwater, and the surface water for decades. In August of 2024, the Air Force held a public meeting in Limestone. They showed slides. They explained their plans. They said their investigation would continue over the next several years. A $4 billion fuel production facility had been planned for the former base. The developers had hoped to start construction in late 2024. The PFAS discovery raised a question nobody wanted to answer publicly. Who is responsible for cleaning this up? The Air Force has argued in federal court that it is not legally liable for the contamination it caused. They cited sovereign immunity. In the name of national security, they argued, they had the right to contaminate Maine. The court agreed. The Snark Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Base in Presque Isle opened and closed within 4 months. The equipment left behind when it closed was valued at $141 million, all of it abandoned. One writer who documented the history of these sites put it this way: "It's like walking through a dystopian landscape. Structures built to defend against nuclear war and survive it. Now, just ruins. The people who built them are gone. The threat they were built to stop never came. And what remains is 9,000 acres of contaminated land in the forests of Maine, quietly leaking, while a new potato chip factory goes up next door." Here is the question nobody has asked the Air Force directly. If sovereign immunity means you are not legally responsible for the contamination you caused, who is? Drop your answer in the comments. That's Global Mysteries Untold. Every Thursday, a story the world buried. Subscribe, and I'll see you next week.